April 2026 is our 20th anniversary. Yep, we're 20 years strong, still fighting for Kiwi families and the values that we all share, despite attempts by the state to muzzle us through deregistration. At Family First, we believe that strong marriages and families are foundational for a strong nation. For 20 years, we've been one of the leading pro-family and pro-life voices. We've played a key role in major public policy debates, including opposition to the anti-smacking law, the redefinition of marriage, the introduction of radical abortion laws, the flawed conversion therapy law, transgender ideology and radical sex education in schools, and the 2020 cannabis and euthanasia referendums. We've also become one of New Zealand's leading new media commentators. Recently, we measured 40 million plus views of Family First content across our social media platforms in just 12 months. In some stories, we've had more views than the mainstream media. But we want to reach even more people with the truth. Here's how you can help us grow even stronger. Follow, subscribe, and share our social media content. Read our research, analysis, and fact sheets, which clear away the cultural narrative and give you the confidence and assurance to stand up for truth and socially conservative values. Send us any important information and happenings affecting our Kiwi culture that we might need to share and amplify with our wider audience. Make submissions to Parliament and councils on bills which downgrade conservative family values. But most importantly, at this special point in our existence, could I be slightly forward and ask for a birthday present? A 20th anniversary present. Would you consider a special financial gift to recognise our significant milestone? And would you consider investing in our future via regular donations through automatic payments? If you feel we have spoken on your behalf and you have appreciated our common sense and credible approach to the many family and political issues in the media and public domain over the past 20 years, please join the movement. It'll be one of the best investments you could make, and we would be very grateful. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Go to familyfirst.nz/donations to invest. Help us to promote strong families, marriages, religious freedom, and the value of life based on the footprint of faith which has underpinned New Zealand for generations. We want to be a voice for your values. Family First New Zealand simply could not exist without your support and investment. Go to familyfirst.nz/donations. Thank you so much.
Good morning everyone on this absolutely beautiful Thursday here in, well, certainly in Auckland. Let me know what it's like in other parts of the country, but it is a stunning day. I'm in my treehouse studio. I am looking out towards sort of the northwest and I cannot see a cloud in the sky. And get this, it's 16 degrees. According to my watch. Actually, I lie. It's now 17 degrees. Quite remarkable. I'm in t-shirt and shorts. So actually, don't imagine that too much. But it's like summer again. Hey, welcome to Solid Ground, where we talk as people know. From a good perspective of faith, I would argue of politics too, philosophy and more, and taking that to reflect on what's happening in New Zealand and around the world. And as always, there is no shortage of topics. In fact, quite a few positive ones to start with today. I know for myself, and I don't know about you guys, all of you actually who are tuning in, there is so much to, if you will, critique or be worried about in society. But at times, actually, there's some really good news stories, and try to bring those to you as well. The regulars will know that this is a live show, and so if you are following this on any of our platforms from X to Substack, Instagram, LinkedIn, welcome. It's great to have you, and all your comments I enjoy reading afterwards. But if you want your comments to come live to me here in the studio, you need to comment on Family First's YouTube channel or on its Facebook page. In fact, if you are on either, make sure you like or subscribe so you, firstly, particularly on YouTube, you get a heads up when any of our shows are going to air. But those comments will come live to me in the studio, just like Mike here, who wins the prize, if you will, of being the first this morning. But good morning. As a bit of a tradition, I love saying good morning to most. I can't say to all, I'd be here all show. But we've got Jackie, good morning. It must be a good morning all across the country. Fourth Adam. Lynette, lovely to have you along. Samuel, good morning to you. Dean, I think this is deliberate, a God morning, which is lovely. Yes, oops, there's the right button. Bernice, I'm actually going to, Bernice says, good morning to everyone except the BSA. Yes, they're not having a good morning. I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit later. And to Darren, yes, good morning and happy Thursday. It's wet in Taupo, but Rosie's my correspondent, if you will, in Taupo. That's no good to hear. Mike, good morning to you. Philip, it's gloomy and, well, look at that. So it must be actually Auckland, maybe north. Auckland and north, isn't that something? Anyway, it's a wonderful day, regardless of the rain, fogginess, or otherwise. And a jolly good morning from Food Dogs Trucking. Lovely to have you along. Hey, look, I'm going to start with what I thought was some positive news. And it's these are actually two MPs. It's Camilla Bellich from Labour and Greg Fleming from National. And they last week, because I'm slightly slow, or rather, I've had so much else to talk about. They have got a bill before Parliament called Modern Slavery Bill. And they had it pass first reading last week. I think all parties except ACT supported it. I'll need to go and triple check that. But what I do know is that their bill passed. And modern slavery legislation is something I've been passionate about for a while. In fact, I was the one who drafted the first bill for Parliament in my last term, and kudos to Greg, Camilla, and also Barbara Kuriger, who was involved before them, picked up that bill of mine, improved it, and really importantly have got it into the Parliament. So this is a win on a whole number of levels. So modern slavery, if you're wondering, is basically think forced labour, child labour. Not in every case, but when you are picking up a very cheap item, often out of China, but from a number of countries, Vietnam, elsewhere, India. In fact, the list can go on. It's not targeting, modern slavery doesn't target a particular country, but it's where basically people are, indentured without basically any pay. As I say, forced labour, prisoners in prison camps, child labour. We've certainly seen reports around the world where workers are locked into a compound and basically aren't allowed out. So those are just some of the examples around, if you will, modern slavery. And what these legislations do, because there's been a number of them around the world. It's one of the things that used to frustrate me when I was in Parliament trying to get support for this, is New Zealand was a laggard. We are behind on modern slavery legislation. And what it does is basically puts the onus on suppliers to confirm their supply chain. So if, I don't know, a Kmart, a warehouse, Noel Leeming, it doesn't matter, Gucci, Cartier, whoever, they need to guarantee or at least audit their supply chains to say, okay, we've looked into who makes this and they are not enslaving people to make this. They're not using child labour. They're not using prisoners. A good example, if people are wondering, is actually the Uyghurs in the Xinjiang province there in China. So as you may know, I get hot on the CCP issue. The Communist Party there basically is trying to get rid of the Uyghurs. They're putting them into concentration camps and trying to, if you will, take away their unique culture. By locking them up in this province, they're also forcing them to work, particularly in the cotton industry. There's a lot of cotton there. So basically, if you are getting your supplies of cotton from the Xinjiang province, you're more likely getting it from Uyghurs who are in concentration camps. It's the same actually. I think Watties ran afoul of this. Though again, they're tomatoes from a similar area, and again for people who were modern slaves being forced to work. Including with children. So long and short, that's what modern slavery does. I think it's well past time that New Zealand has this legislation. I'm really pleased to see it get through the Parliament, get through its first reading. As I say, it's going to make large corporates have to report their supply chains, and then obviously there's consequences. If they find problems, they've a chance to rectify it, which is important. They have to publicly report, so obviously we can hold them to account and make our own decisions. And thirdly, if there's gross breaches, I think this law actually has a commissioner effect, fines. So I think it's good. There's obviously things to iron out, but kudos to Greg and to Camilla for getting this done. And as I noted, one's Labour, one's National. This is another first for the Parliament. These are two MPs from either side of the House that have cooperated together. This is a bill in both their names. And they got their caucuses to agree to allow their bill, this modern slavery bill, to go to the top of the ballot. So when they pull out members' bills, there's only 12 of them at a time. If you're one of the last to be drawn out, you go to the bottom. So you're going to have to wait weeks and weeks and weeks for it to move from slot 12 to slot 8 to slot number 1. And so I think it's just great that they managed to not only cooperate around a bill that I'm quite passionate about, but managed to actually convince their colleagues that it should be read swiftly. And I think that's just great. So kudos to them. Fourth Adam is saying, is this going to be no more trade with China? And also mentions the Middle East. No, we will still be trading with China and India and into the Middle East but we just need to be checking the supply chains, because while there is, sadly, a lot of modern slavery in China, it's not everywhere. But, it's particularly in certain provinces, as I say, like sort of Xinjiang with the Uyghurs. Look, we know they often imprison people from Falun Gong and house Christians. And so if it's found, a supply chain for, Air New Zealand finds that its plastic cups are being made by prisoners, then, that needs to be reported. So I think a good thing there. And Nigel, good morning to you. Lovely to have you along. So that's one bit of good news. The other is this. You would have seen the news breaking yesterday. The classic own goal, or as I describe it, the BSA hoisting itself on its own petard. There's a sort of an old school phrase. It's been scrapped. Paul Goldsmith, the minister, announced this yesterday, and it is good news because the BSA has had a gross overreach recently around Sean Plunkett and the platform, and also has been basically useless for years, ideologically captured and biased. And I think it was last week I shared an example with you around, of all things, abortion, but the Right to Life had put in a complaint about something that Radio New Zealand had put forward. And it was just so biased. There was no counter view, no counterfactuals, no sense that this could even be a debate. Of course, that complaint was tossed out. The BSA couldn't care less because, as I keep saying, they're ideologically captured. What the BSA hoisted itself on that petard was that Sean Plunkett had described something as mumbo jumbo, and one person with a vexatious history of complaining did complain to the BSA. And what did they do? The BSA, they chased it with gusto. In fact, they even sought legal advice to confirm that their powers could expand. The BSA didn't feel it needed to go to Parliament and ask the Parliament to decide whether the BSA should cover the likes of podcasts or online radio or even shows like this. The BSA just decided that it could give itself that power. And that, I think, is the final kicker for the government. They've said, I'm sorry, guys, you're basically out of control. So good riddance to them. They're not gone yet. The government has to put legislation into the Parliament. I would expect it will get, coalition support. I could imagine the left, Labour and the Greens are complaining because, of course, the BSA is an ally of theirs. The BSA is more than happy to shut down conservative conversations. It's more than happy to challenge anybody who might be, sceptical on the climate or wants to debate the Treaty of Waitangi or has issues around, COVID. Ethical issues, of course, RNZ, Red Radio as I prefer to call it, highly biased when it comes to, trans issues basically. They are huge supporters of chemicalising and mutilating children. Just corrupt. I mean, that's the Radio New Zealand, but the BSA would, always going to back them. So good riddance, as I say, to the BSA. You will not be missed. And again, I think it's delightful at one level that they hoist themselves on their own petard. Their gross overreach of power and their incompetence in their judgments. Actually, it's not incompetence, it's their prejudice and bias over years is coming to an end. So that's really good. And the other thing, because someone made a comment on my socials, which I read before coming on the show, though, they said, well, who are we going to complain to now when there's, real egregious breaches? Look, it's possible the government might encourage broadcasters to set up a voluntary code, a bit like print media does. But what I would say to people is your complaints to date to the BSA, by and large, went nowhere. Think about the abusive language of Andrea Vance when she called an MP the C word. Think of what's happening with Mikey Sherman at the moment and what she's said. As I mentioned earlier, articles that are being written or broadcast which are just so biased and one-sided. BSA does absolutely nothing. So your complaints went nowhere. But I suppose the other thing I would say is we've seen a new media environment now, whether it is here at Family First with our regular shows, and there are many of them now. We also, of course, have a new show, Counterculture. There's a new one just dropped, actually. It's around what's happening to our young men, a really good show there, led by Samuel Bilton. But there's many other places now to get your news. And so if you come across incompetence in the mainstream media or bias, leave them. You don't need to listen to Radio New Zealand. You don't need to listen to TVNZ. There is the likes, as I say, of what we do here on Family First. There's RCR, there's the platform. There's no shortage of blogs. Like, there's so many places now where we can go and source our news. Mike is saying, so I'm just reading the comment here if I've got it completely. Not sure the itself the purpose will be gone. Pretty much Goldsmith said its reach is redundant. It doesn't cover online. So BSA might be gone, but it's something might get created. Yeah, look, that's quite possible. The sense I get from listening to the minister yesterday is that they're going to just leave the space open for now. There might be an encouragement towards a voluntary code, which is fine. If people want to sign up to that. But actually, I just see, and you will know from my earlier commentary around this, I just saw this as gross overreach by the BSA. Again, another attempt to control and censor what is said. Because the really egregious stuff, they never touch. And then it's the small stuff, it's the ideological stuff, the gusto of which the BSA went after. The platform tells you, I think, all you need to know. Anyway, there's that. And as Rosie says, how is it that Mikey Sherman can keep working at TVNZ before she either resigns or fired? I suspect she's going to be let go. I mean, I don't know, that's just my speculation, but I think it's reached a point now where her role's not tenable. I mentioned that there is a new show that's Counterculture with Samuel Bilton. I don't know where my little... I've lost it. Oh, here it is. It looks like this. It's not about drug harm this week, as I say. It's about what's happening to our young men. So go and check that out. In fact, last week I did a podcast on Family Matters with Jared Holland, actually discussing the same topic. Really encourage you to go and listen to that. Yesterday I released this podcast with Katie Fowl. Some of you will know Katie. She was at the Forum 2 years ago. She is amazing. She calls a spade, and I love that. And also she's been on the podcast before. This one is, putting kids first in marriage, and also something called the Greater Than campaign in America. I won't tell you what it's about, but it's quite something, actually. They've pulled together some pretty strong names into this Greater Than campaign. Lila Rose, Ellie Beth Stuckey, Michael Knowles, and herself. But here's just a short snippet.
I think that a lot of you viewers are probably familiar with the idea that children have a right to life. And that means that we have an obligation to protect them from the forces that would seek to victimize them in the womb. Children also have a right to their mother and father. They have a right to be known and loved by the two people responsible for their existence. And so Them Before Us is the only organization in the globe solely devoted to defending children's rights in the family. It pairs very well with children's right to life because in both of those scenarios, it's a natural right, whether or not the civil government recognizes it. It's critical for their thriving and their surviving. And It's not a right that children can defend themselves. They need adults to step up and do that for them. So if children have a right to their mother and father, that actually is the plumb line that we use as it relates to all questions about marriage and family, whether it is the definition of marriage, when divorce is appropriate, whether or not to promote modern families, how to think about technologies like IVF, sperm and egg donation, and surrogacy. Who is adoption for? Should we encourage cohabitation or open non-monogamy? Who goes on a child's birth certificate? What is a parent? Every single one of those questions we don't look at as disparate manifestations out in the culture. We look at them as a singular question, which is, what about the child?
Yep, I can't recommend the podcast enough, not because of me, because of Katie. I mean, she's just got a clarity of thinking, which is incredible, and I love it. Look, lots of comments coming around the BSA, which doesn't surprise me. The ideological bias, as Fourth Adam notes. Foo Dogs Trucking's asking how many tax dollars went to the BSA. I actually don't know. It'll probably be in the millions, but it won't be excessive in that sense. It won't be a massive staff, but again, some good savings. Fourth Adam's also talking about the SPLC. In fact, you must be able to see, Fourth Adam, my screen, because that's my next topic. Ken is saying actually that, and this is around the modern slavery, that there's child prostitution happening in Auckland. You know, I suspect there is. I mean, I don't know, but I would certainly encourage people, if they come in across that, to report it to police. Foo Dogs Trucking's asking where my mug is. It's actually right here, but I've run out of coffee early this morning, so that's why I'm switching to water. But no, the mug is still here. In fact, we're trying to get some more produced. Fourth Adam's asking if we're engaging with comments. We are. This is what I do. Oh, come on. Simply Green's talking about, I'd like to take that sort of holistic approach too, though I must admit I'm not sure what that's related to, so apologies from my side. Someone is quite pressing here, because this is the next little video I'm going to play. This is about the Southern Poverty Law Center and a most extraordinary situation developing in America, where supposedly a human rights group, and I say supposedly because I find their view, this SPLC's view of human rights, a bit wacky. They're quite woke, pro-abortion, pro-trans rights, very much attacking any conservative. But get this Southern Poverty Law Center has been funding extremist groups in order to justify its existence. Here it is.
Poverty Law Center bankrupted the Klan and later recovered millions from neo-Nazi groups, with lawsuits representing victims of violence. But Tuesday, the tables turned. The Justice Department charged the organization with fraud for allegedly misleading donors and lying to financial institutions by paying members of violent extremist groups millions of dollars to act as informants.
The SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred.
Including, the indictment alleges, a leader of the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, who, quote, attended the event at the direction of SPLC, made racist postings under the supervision of the SPLC, and helped coordinate transportation to the event for several attendees. But Law Center interim president Brian Fair said the group had long used informants and called the indictment a political attack by the Trump administration.
They have made no secret of who they want to protect and who they want to destroy.
You have to wonder if this...
Attorney Scott Frederickson questioned the Justice Department's legal theories.
Can the federal government persuade a jury that the Southern Poverty Law Center was out there funding extremism for its own purposes?
I think the short answer is they probably will. I mean, it is quite extraordinary. And look, the Southern Poverty Law Center has said, look, and you heard it from the CEO there, oh, look, these are just informants. We've got paid informants in these particularly far-right extremist groups. But it's not actually that simple, because it hasn't been simple payments to these people. It's actually an array of, as I understand it, shell companies and a whole lot of accounting, which is quite suspicious. In other words, would you really go to these lengths? And I think that's what the Department of Justice in the US is suggesting. Why do they go to such lengths to hide these payments from? Obviously, you don't want to allow the extremist groups, if it was an informant, to know, but to hide it from the donors of the Southern Poverty Law Center. So, as I say, quite extraordinary situation, and a topic we will be following closely, I think, here in New Zealand and around the world. But this supposed champion of human rights has actually been funding, relatively generously it seems, extremist groups on the right in order to actually justify their existence. To say, oh, look at these groups, like the KKK or whatever the modern derivatives are, we're going to fight against them, but actually they've been funding them. It is absolutely extraordinary. Forth Adams followed up and said he's not commenting about the lack of comments on live shows, but it's after the fact, and also on other shows. Yeah, well, I'll feed back to the team, I suppose. I know for myself at times, trying to get across to all my social media and reply to every comment becomes quite the job, but we can always give it a go. Foo Dogs Trucking is now, actually there was a comment. Oh yes, and this is Pugs for Life, and Foo Dogs Trucking's responded to that one, that pug lives matter. They certainly do. Got a few of them around our place here, actually, not our dogs but our neighbours. Anyway, no, I haven't seen this one. So Duncan Garner's podcasts are available on YouTube as well, and actually he's pretty good. Got a lot of time for Duncan. I've actually been on his show as well. So long and short, I haven't. I better check it out. But I mean, Chloe is unhinged, just absolutely nuts. And this is a good theme for the day too. That's right, pugs not drugs. It could be a new family first expression. Hey, I just also wanted to play this. I know it's a bit American heavy today, but this is just, you remember, of course, was it 2 weeks ago now, the last assassination attempt on Trump? You've got to ask questions about his security. And so I'm just going to play this video. It's taken from the BBC in real time and then slowed down. But just a couple of quick comments I want to make.
You see that he is entering the area, but actually disappears into a little side room. You can actually just see one of the sniffer dogs there actually follows him in for a moment. You see that he is entering the area, but actually disappears into a little side room. You can actually just see one of the sniffer dogs there actually follows him in for a moment. And then he emerges, and it's at that point that he comes out running without his coat, but you can clearly see the long gun there.
Wow. And
that's the point that he opens fire at the Secret Service. There had been some discussion as to whether the bullet that hit him, he is okay, he had a bulletproof, he had a vest on that saved his life. But there had been some question as to who fired that, whether it was one of the other officers or not, and maybe this appears to clear that up.
Anyway, you've probably seen that. I just find it remarkable. 3 quick points on that. The security around Trump, to me, seems remarkably, if you will, light or not particularly competent. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I find it extraordinary that someone could have a weapon and the dog either didn't sniff it or, as it seems, the handler pulled them away. Secondly, I don't know about you. I don't understand how you could have both that officer and a dog checking out that room, and look, it seemed like a second later he comes running out with a rifle. I mean, it's did they miss it? And then the last is the guy in the middle in the suit. Let me see. I don't want to have his.
You see that he is
the guy there who's got his hand up to his ear in the center in the suit. I was amazed at how difficult, you can see at the end trying to unloose. There he is. I find it remarkable. How badly the Secret Service agent, a bit like the shooting in, I've forgotten, was it Blake County, where there's the woman service civil, I'm losing my English, the Secret Service agent, the woman there, again having trouble unholstering her sidearm, and again the same with this guy. Again, it's just extraordinary to me. Look, I know these things happen. It's high pressure. It's not expected, and all of that. And look, I've not been involved in close protection, so we better underline that. But again, I'm just amazed that the security allowed the assassin or attempted assassin to be in the hotel. Secondly, that he's in a side room and the dog and the handler didn't pick up on anything. And literally a second later, he's running out with a rifle. Then he's able to get past all of those guys. And as I say, one of the agents can't even unholster his sidearm. It's just extraordinary to me. Anyway, and as I can see, people are saying a total balls up. Butler. Thank you. It wasn't Blake County, Butler. So that is great. Lax. I would have thought the dog would have indicated. Yeah, well, so would I. There's a hint, it seems, that the dog was pulled away. Anyway, hey, look, guys, I better wrap up. A reminder, of course, it's Thursday, so Bob and I are back in a few hours at 5 p.m. for Political Playback. We'll be talking all the topics of the day, and there are no shortage. We have former national ministers saying it's time to collapse the government. News has come out that Nicola Willis National is spending huge amounts of money on her social media, but not much on Luxon. More talk around trade. We've got the FTA and now an agreement with Singapore. We've got ACT announcing various policies. There is no shortage of discussions. As I said, there is a new counterculture out. Go and check that. A reminder too that Bob and I are frequent writers, as is the Family First crew. But if you want to see my or Bob's particular writings, go to substack.com. But you can also go to the Family First website where you can watch, read and listen. There is just no shortage of content. And of course, a reminder of the latest podcast I've just done with Katie Faust. I highly recommend her. She's just, as I said earlier, has a wonderful clarity of thinking, and I just love having a chat with her. Guys, I'm going to leave it. It is 8 o'clock. I hope you have a wonderful day, no matter what the weather's like here in the country. And I will see some of you tonight on Political Playback. Otherwise, I'll see you again on Tuesday morning.